Good evening. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors. Everyone please silence their cell phones, and I would ask everybody to please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. When we are finished with the Pledge of Allegiance, if everybody could please remain standing for a moment of silence in honor of John Burke. John was a longtime Middletown Township manager and a dedicated public servant, and he passed away on December 4th. Thank you.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Tosti, would you please call roll?
Ms. Strauss.
Here.
Ms. Payne.
Here.
Ms. Quirple.
Here.
Mr. Kizak.
Here.
Also joining us tonight are our township manager, our township solicitor, our township engineer, and our department heads.
Thank you, Mr. Tosti. A few announcements. The next Board of Supervisors meeting will be Monday, January 4th, 2021 at 7 o'clock p.m. We were scheduled for another meeting in the month of December. That was a placeholder in case we needed a second meeting in December. It turns out we can cover all of the remaining agenda items for the year tonight, and therefore we will not have that second December meeting. So the next meeting will be January 4th, 2021. Mr. Esposito has an announcement.
Yeah, so I'd like to announce that the Board of Supervisors held an executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss real estate matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Esposito. And now we have some police department recognitions. Chief Barbarella.
There we go. Got it. All right. Thank you, Mr. Kizak. Normally, a couple of times a year, we do a recognition ceremony for our officers that do commendatory work. With everything going on, we haven't had an opportunity to do any of those recognition ceremonies at a board meeting. So I just wanted to, real fast, as these awards were piling up, just give the officers some recognition in a public meeting. So just give me a couple of minutes. I'll fly through this. We also have 4 of our township citizens that we are going to give citizens commendations to as well. So I want to start with a life-saving award. Officer Ryan Morrison and Officer Jeff Wagner, back in April, performed CPR and utilized our AED machine to help save a heart attack victim's life. They're going to get a life-saving award for that. Commendatory letters to Officers Tom Leinheiser, Larry Hardy, and Jake Gallagher for an outstanding narcotics arrest they made back in April on Woodburn Road. Officer Mark Leonhauser for an outstanding narcotics arrest made in August at Woodburn and East Lincoln. And Detective Chris Viscardi, who did some outstanding investigative work regards to the Sesame Place assault that took place over the summer. So there are commendations. Our citizens' commendations, we have 3 young men, Joseph Ong, Virgil Ong, and Michael Duba. This is an old job. It's from back in October of 19. We were supposed to recognize them in March of this year, but then we had the shutdown. But back in October of 19, these 3 young men directed responding officers to a location where a 15-year-old had fallen off his bike and was suffering from severe head trauma. So thankfully, they were there. I think their actions actually saved this young man's life. And then a citizen from Highland Park, Natalie Markowitz, just this past November, on November 19th, she saw her neighbor's house on fire, quickly alerted her neighbors that their house was on fire. That allowed them to evacuate safely without injury. We are going to give all 4 of them citizens' commendations. And we have some years of service that I just want to recognize, officers that hit the milestone of 20, 25, 30, or 35 years. These officers are going to hit that milestone either in 2020 or 21. So for 20 years, we have Sergeant Bob Weber, Officer Paul Runner, Officer Rob Compton. 25 years, we have Sergeant Mike Russo, and then officers Scott Patrick, Joe Calora, Glenn McPherson, Mike Marks, Ed DeFrank, and Nelson Webb. 30 years, Lieutenant John McNevich. 35 years, Lieutenant Ken Mellis. And just in closing, I want to recognize Officer Melissa Robinson for the outstanding ongoing community work that she does, but especially for the way she organized what was a very successful Shop with a Cop event yesterday at our Target. I know Mr. Tosti was there participating. Thank you for that, Mr. Tosti. Ms. Tioli-Cools was there participating as well. We had a very big crowd, but it was safe. Everyone had their masks on, and I think it was a good community event for us, successful community event. And then one last thing, a longtime civilian employee of the police department who retired long before I became chief, Ethel Hayes, passed away on November 27th. Ethel was an office manager for the PD for many years, and I just want to offer the condolences on behalf of the police department to her family. I got a chance to meet her a couple years ago and talk to her, and she was suffering from dementia, but she had very fond memories of our police department. Her viewing was last night, but it was private due to COVID, so we weren't able to go in person and pay our respects. So I just wanted to offer our condolences to her. And that is all I have. So I thank you for this time, Mr. Kizak.
Thank you, Chief. Could we just have a quick round of applause for all the officers and the citizens who are recognized tonight? Thanks again, Chief.
Thank
Appreciate
you. Let me wipe this microphone.
Next on the agenda is public comment on non-agenda items. This is public comment on non-agenda items only. Is there any public comment? And if you would just please state your name and your address. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Deborah Harker, 140 Lowell Court in Langhorne. I came here tonight to talk to you about the incident at the Oxford Valley Mall on Saturday afternoon. I happened to be at the mall. It was one of my first outings in over 9 months. Decided to get a little bit of holiday shopping done. And I had just made my way into a store after having waited when the power cut out. I had actually just thought it was a temporary power outage. I didn't think anything of it because there were no alarms or anything. So I just figured whatever had happened, it would come back on. There was no storms or anything else going on outside. I continued to shop for another 15 minutes by flashlight, completely with no alarm whatsoever, and afterwards handed my bag off to one of the ladies. They said they would call me back, and I left the store. Across the way, there is a large picture window. It happens to be one of the only windows where you can see outside from the entire mall. And I saw fire trucks. I happened to wander over just to kind of take a look, and I saw black smoke coming from the roof. And that's where I told myself, it's time to get out. So I started hightailing it out of the mall into my car. And when I left the mall, I was extremely surprised to see over 12 fire trucks responding to the mall with ladders up onto the roof. And my question to you, and the reason why I'm bringing it to your attention is, why were there no alarms going off in the mall if there was a potential fire that caused 5 different fire companies to respond to the location? Are we more concerned about property than we are concerned about people? There were no alarms. There were no announcements. There was no bullhorn throughout the mall yelling evacuate. I saw no firefighters. I saw no police in the mall. Nobody was asking people to leave. I was in the mall for over 15 minutes after the power cut, and the firefighters were already on site accessing the roof, and nobody had come through to evacuate the mall. And I need to bring that to your attention because there needs to be an investigation to find out what went wrong. What are the emergency protocols in the mall? What is expected of them as a community partner to be responsible for people and not just property? Why were there no firefighters coming through the mall evacuating? Why were there no police department coming through the mall evacuating? And if they did come through, it was after I left, which was more than 15 minutes before there was a response for human life to clear the mall. So I'm coming to you to ask you to not just get a response today, and maybe they do have a response, but there needs to be an investigation take a look at the reports. You need to hold people accountable. You need to hold the mall accountable to make them know what went wrong, what are they going to do next time, and put them on notice that this is not acceptable. And I just needed to come to you or your attention because I don't know if I didn't see that in any of the news articles that I had read. And I don't know if you are aware that there was such a terrible response for what was potentially a fire and a 5 alarmer. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you. I think our fire marshal is here, and I think he might be able to
I
shed some
appreciate
light
it. Thank
on the
you.
incident. Mr.
I
McGuire?
have my mask on. I didn't touch anything.
Good evening. So the fire department did respond to 2 separate incidents at the same time. One was at the Speedway Diner and one was at the mall for power-related problems. So the initial report to the fire department that there was black smoke coming off the roof, the fire department got there, started to organize their efforts to try and identify what was going on inside of the mall. When I got there about 15 minutes into the mall, into the incident and got inside the mall, I did speak directly with security, at which point they started to evacuate the building and get everybody out of the complex. So at the end of the incident, we did talk about some best practices with the mall, how to improve some of their times, trying to make things a little bit more effective from their perspective. I will tell you, however, that one of the issues that we had, because we had lost the phase coming into the mall, which started this whole issue kicked off, they had lost their radio systems. So they were actually unable to communicate internally with each other, which again is something that they're in the process of working through at this particular point in time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So it sounds like your point is well taken, and thank you for bringing it to our attention. It sounds like there already at least has been some investigation into the issue, but certainly there's always room for improvement. And I know I can speak for Mr. McGuire. I know that that's something he's always very focused on. And so I'm sure it will be looked into further to make sure that there can be better efforts in the future.
Mr. McGuire, Mr. McGuire, just one of her concerns was that about an evacuation plan or some kind of plan. Does the mall have a plan that if this happens or how it happens and when to evacuate and stuff like that?
Yes, so the mall does have an evacuation plan. It gets reviewed annually. We actually go out there and run the drill, make sure that everybody's getting out of the building, that they're able to secure things. The fire alarm for this particular incident did not go off because of where the haze from the generator was. There's no smoke detectors in there. They're only heat detectors, basically. So that's one of the things that we're working with the mall to try and work through to activate the fire alarm from a different system.
Thank you, Mr. McGuire. Are there any other public comments on non-agenda items? Yes, sir. Just if you could please state your name and address.
John Swider, 210 Clear Creek Road, Langhorne, PA. And this is in reference to the traffic light at Woodbourne and Swift Road.
Okay.
Okay, good. Just make sure I'm on the agenda there. I've been living here since 1987 at Swan Point. So it's like 33 years. And I cannot tell you how many times there's been accidents there. I've heard accidents. My neighbor across the street back in the 90s, his car didn't make it. He walked away, fortunately. But there are so many accidents, and it happens a lot. But here's the thing. There's so many close calls there. So you have to figure you got the traffic coming from Stiers on Woodbourne. Then you got the traffic coming from the NAC, traffic coming across, and I'm on Swift Road. So just this morning, believe it or not, I'm retired. We're going to Moisenitzi's, 10 o'clock, so not peak hours. Guy coming this way, fortunately, had his turn signal on. I'm making a left across traffic, looks pretty clear. He starts to go, stops, I go, he stops. and it's just like really scary. So I tell my daughter not to come during peak hours because it's almost impossible. Now, throw in the factor that if you got the traffic light that's out of sync, the traffic light, this is the traffic light at the NAC, at the bypass, everything's backed up. So you're really taking your life in your own hands. And I'm here to say we desperately need that traffic light. Now, I got like a rhetorical question for everyone. What is your purpose as managers? And I think it would be safety. And I'm here to tell you it's not safe. So I appreciate your support in getting a light there. So I can live another 33 years without worrying getting hit.
So this is, I think this is the third meeting we've had somebody from your neighborhood come to address this issue.
Yeah.
And at the last meeting, when we voted to advertise the 2021 budget, it did include funding as a priority one capital project to make road improvements and install a traffic signal at Swift Road. So it's in the budget for 2021, which is agenda item 7, which will be voted on for final improvement, final adoption tonight.
Okay, when will that vote take place?
Tonight.
Tonight?
Yeah.
Awesome. So appreciate that. Yes,
So-
please.
Yeah, so all that means though, a budget is a plan. So all that means is that this item will be in the budget for 2021. At some point in 2021, that will have to come before us again for final approval. So there's a process involved, but
Got it.
at least for planning purposes, it's going into the 2021 budget as a priority one project.
That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be done.
Well, everything is subject to the financial state of the township at the particular time, what other projects there are. There has to be a process that we go through with our engineers and our traffic engineers. But ultimately, it would come before us to vote on for final approval at some point in 2021.
I'll have to tell you, I would really appreciate your support on this because it's really important. And thank you.
Thank you. Is there, okay, hold on, we have one more person here. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, it's Virginia King. Again, Jeannie Walsh to anybody that's from my neighborhood off of our Facebook group in support of this. And I just want to echo John's sentiments. I just want to really encourage and ask that you please vote for this and that we get this done and get this approved. And even though I know it's on the budget, I know there's a vote tonight. Let's vote on it to stay at a priority one and really encourage you guys to help us get this done and actually get it done as quickly as possible in the year 2021. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Evening. My name's Jim Walsh. I live at 313 White Swan Way. I'm also here in support of the light at the intersection of Swift, Woodburn, and Lower Silver Lake Road. Since I've been involved following these proceedings. It seems like this project has gone in fits and starts to some extent. I don't have a lot of confidence that the board sees this as an important issue as we do. You guys wanted it to be a priority 2. I think you made the right decision to make it a priority 1, but now we're waiting for Wawa. But that intersection is dangerous now, regardless of whether Wawa moves in. There is some discussion about looking for other intersections in the township where the money could be spent. I don't know that's. I think that's. I don't know the wisdom behind that move, because frankly, we know that this intersection is dangerous. And so I would ask the board during this year, when you vote on the budget, to keep it a priority 1, but also at some point to look forward. I realize it's a bold move coming off a pandemic. I understand it. The price tag's significant, but at the end of the day, when you got to move a piano, sometimes you guys got to move the piano and not pick up the bench. And I'm going to ask that the board do that, and that the board consider sending this project out for bid at the first opportunity come the next year. And with that, I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Anybody else in the room have public comment on non-agenda items? And seeing none, Nick, do we have anybody on Zoom with a public comment?
We do have one moving in now.
Well, while we're waiting for that, I did receive an email also from Tony Keller, 299 Swift Road, in favor of the signal.
Thank you.
Hey, Steve Rosa from Swan Point. I wanted to echo my neighbor's support for the light and to stress just how important it is, really from a safety standpoint. And it's not just that it's a busy intersection or that it's a bad intersection. It is especially bad And it's not just coming out of the development at Swan Point, but rather there is a proclivity of folks who are coming from the direction of the NAC towards Cork Creek Park. When they confront someone who's turning left onto Lower Silver Lake Road, they illegally pass on the right. So anyone who's coming the other way on Woodburn, right, they think they might turn into Swan Point and think that they have, they're fine to do that because the person in front of them is simply turning in the other direction. But lo and behold, coming at 50 to 60 miles an hour in the other direction, illegally passing on the right, is someone coming from the direction of the NAC. And I can say from living in the development and being around that area, the rate of speed is incredibly dangerous. This is a dangerous intersection. And I would certainly support anything you can do to prioritize this as a budget matter. I'd be very, very grateful. I just echo very much the neighbors' concerns and on this. So whatever you can do, we will appreciate.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Mr. Valla, anybody
There's
else?
one more coming in now.
Thanks.
Start my video. Okay. Here we go.
I can't see you, so if you could just turn your video on. There you go. Please state your name and address.
Okay. 1 second. I have this lowered. Sorry. Okay. My name is Felicia Alexander. I live at 442 White Swan Way, and we have lived here since 1990. And during that time, I can't tell you how many accidents we have witnessed. My son's girlfriend at the time was nearly killed when she was attempting to come into our neighborhood from across Woodburn, and a car came flying off the bypass and T-boned her. Her car was in horrible condition. She was injured, and that was 10 years ago, and nothing has happened since that time. We've had neighbors who lived on White Swan. Some of you might remember the Costellos. Mrs. Costello was nearly killed. She was a White Swan Way resident when she got T-boned coming home. You guys have to do something. We really need your help on it. We already know that it's a pivotal issue for people in the Swan Point neighborhood. But beyond that, it's important for our whole community because people are driving on Woodburn Road not realizing that they're in danger of being in an accident, whether it's caused by somebody coming from any of the 4 directions. So thank you for your attention to this, and I really hope to see changes coming in 2021 along with all the neighbors who participated tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Valla, anybody else?
We have a few more. They'll come in one at a time.
Thanks. Yes, sir. If you could just please state your name and address. Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute, sir.
Brian Jameson, 583 White Swan Way. I'm about 300 yards from this intersection. I've been here for about 12 years and have seen numerous accidents at this particular intersection. One included my family. We were pulling into the neighborhood and we were run into by another neighbor, oddly enough. That just shows you how confusing this particular intersection is, where people who use it all the time are also getting in accidents. Also, I was witness to a pretty big accident. Another car T-boned somebody else, to go off the note from the previous caller. I actually called 911. I pulled out 3 people out of the car, helped the EMT people, and was later deposed by the lawyers for a lawsuit. And that lawsuit just kind of indicates that there is some confusion about who has the right of way and which way you're supposed to go and the speeds. When I sat through that deposition, the questions from the attorneys were about speed and where we were coming from and was it too fast and were they looking the right way? And it was clear that anything can happen at this intersection. We just definitely need something like a light to say, hey, stop, look and see what's going on. You know, have a very dependable way of getting out of this neighborhood, getting past this neighborhood. It's a, despite it being a two-lane road, it's a major artery between the mall traffic and Newtown, as well as the NAC, and 95 as well. I mean, I take it to get on Woodburn, to get onto the bypass, to get on 95, and that traffic is increasing every year as more residents, you know, are coming into this area. So thank you for your time, and please, I look for your support to put this traffic light in at this intersection.
Thank you, sir.
Next one is coming in.
Yes, sir. If you could just please state your name and address. Thank you. Mr. Adams?
I don't think Mr. Adams has his audio enabled. I'll move him back out and he can raise his hand again if he would like.
Okay. Mr. Adams, if you can hear us, we tried to let you in. Your audio wasn't working. So if you can get that working, we can get you back in here shortly. Yes, ma'am. Please state your name and address.
Yes, hello. Oh. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yes, hello. My name is Nancy Glatfelter, and I live at 463 White Swan Way in Swan Point. And I would like to echo the sentiments of my neighbors. I've lived in this development for 20 years. I am a nurse, and I can tell you firsthand, I've stopped for numerous accidents right outside of my development, and some of these people have been critically injured. So I'm begging you to please put a light there. I'm very concerned about the elderly population in the neighborhood, and I'm also very concerned about new drivers who, you know, are not experienced. The one thing, there's very few guarantees in life, but the one thing we can guarantee is that development has not stopped, nor will it stop. People are moving increasingly out of the cities into the suburbs, and I think we just need to ensure safety. So please, thank you for your time, and I ask you to keep this as a priority one for next year. Thank you.
Thank you. For other commenters, because we've now heard from a number of people that have kind of echoed the same sentiment. This item, the traffic signal, is a priority one capital project in the budget that will be voted on tonight. So what you're asking for is has been done. It's in the budget. So certainly everybody is free to speak. I'm not going to tell you you can't, but to the extent you're here to ask for the board to include this in the 2021 budget, it's in there. Yes, Mr. Adams, you're back. Mr. Adams? Seems like we're still having an audio problem. Mr. Val, is there anybody else waiting to talk?
There is not anymore. I believe Mr. Adams does not have his audio enabled.
Mr. Adams, your audio is not working, so we're going to move on with the meeting. However, if at some point you can get it corrected, we can come back to you during other business at the conclusion of the meeting. And with that, is there any other public comment on non-agenda items?
We do have one that just came in.
All right. If you could just please state your name and your address.
Sure. This is Donna Salvucci, 144 Pine Glen. in Swan Point. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. I have just a few more comments, and I appreciate that you've heard many comments tonight. And of course, I have been the main representative before. I'm glad that so many of our citizens from Swan Point are on tonight, sharing their experiences from many years before I've lived in the development. And I just want to reiterate, I know and I appreciate that this is a priority one moving forward in the next budget, but it was a priority one in 2019 when I started working on this with the development. So I'm glad it's moving forward, but we've already been here. So I want to add a few things. Last month's meeting, I made a mistake. I said that there were 10 accidents that I had heard of from the chief over the past 3 years, but I forgot that there was the accident that we didn't count that had happened right after the October meeting, which made 11 accidents. So I just wanted to correct myself. I would like to know if we could get the information on those 11 accidents that had occurred over the past 3 years. So if we could get some information on that too. We'd also had gotten a traffic engineer's draft report that was made with regard to the information that initiated the traffic engineer's recommendation for the traffic light. It would be great if we could get the traffic engineer's final report. And I know from the information that's in that it looks like there's few accidents that are identified as correctable accidents going back many years. It would be helpful to kind of know that those numbers look very, very like they're just a paucity of accidents. When obviously, as you listen to our folks in Swan Point, how many people have experienced accidents, called in accidents, helped at accidents. There's been suits over accidents. So the data appears one way when the reality, of course, when we're waiting for the accident data, is very, very, very different experience. So that's just something I wanted to share. I'm also wondering if as citizens, is there any point over the next year, if things begin to change, is there any opportunity for us or a representative from the development to meet with a traffic engineer? Because there was a recommendation made a month or two ago that as a development we thought would not be helpful. So if things begin to change, is there an opportunity for a representative to meet with the traffic engineer representative to see if what they might be recommending is something that makes sense based on our experience of the intersection? So I'm just kind of putting that out there.
Okay, thank you for your comments. And I guess a couple things quickly. You've mentioned a couple of times that this has already been in a budget and has already been a priority one. I mean, that's just factually not true. This project has never been in a municipal budget in this township. This year, 2021, if we approve it tonight, will be the first time it goes into a budget. This is something that was discussed in a citizens traffic commission in the past, but it never made it beyond that level. We will have our traffic engineer coming in the early part of 2021 to give a report, and certainly that will be a public meeting, and yourself or other members of the community are welcome to come and make comments and ask questions. And as with everything else, this process will be done publicly, and we'll have to come back before us to vote on, and that will be another opportunity for members of the public to come, make comments, and ask questions. Okay, so Mr. Vala, are there any other public comment on non-agenda items?
I am seeing no more hands raised. So you are good to proceed.
Okay. Mr. Adams looks like he's back in the meeting, Mr. Vala. Okay, so I'm not seeing anybody else. No? Okay, we're going to move on then. Next on the agenda are the consent agenda items. Item A, consideration of authorizing payment of December 7th, 2020 bill list in the amount of $1,636,910.84 Item B, consideration of approving the November 16th, 2020 minutes of the public meeting of the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors. Item C, consideration of authorizing final escrow release for the United Artists Oxford Valley 403 Middletown Boulevard in the amount of $169,132.44. And item D, consideration of approving change order number 1 and payment number 2 for the 2020 road paving program to General Asphalt Paving Company, Inc. in the amount of $324,987.34. Is there a motion on the consent agenda items?
I move to accept the consent agenda items as read.
Thank you,
I'll
Mr.
second.
Tosti. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions? Are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. Next on the agenda is consideration of final land development plan for a 4-story hotel for 2345 Lincoln LLC, 2345 Lincoln Highway, Langhorne, Pennsylvania, 19047, TMP number 22-04-026-008S/LD number 20-69. And I am going to recuse myself from this agenda item and turn it over to our vice chairperson, Amy Strauss.
Thank you, Mr. Kizak. I think we have Mr. Murphy with us to talk about this agenda item.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm Ed Murphy. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant. To my left in the first row is Justin Gennady, who is the project engineer from Dynamic Engineering. To my right in the first row with the blue sweater.
Can you just get closer to the mic? I can't.
Sure.
Thank you.
To my left is Justin Gennady from Dynamic Engineering. He's the project engineer. To my right in the blue sweater is Chris Vernon. He's the principal of Mercer Management, which is the owner of the property in question. I'm going to do a brief chronology and then I'm going to turn it over for a minute to Chris to explain a little bit about who he is and why we're doing what we're doing. But as a little bit of background, a little over 3 years ago today, Toys R Us declared bankruptcy in September of 2017. In March of the following year, 2018, Toys R Us announced that they were going to have a nationwide liquidation of their properties. And in August of 18, Chris and his company purchased one of those properties, which involves the property on Route 1 in Middletown Township. Shortly after that acquisition, Chris reached out to me and we set up an initial meeting with the township staff in the fall of 2018 to talk about what at least I thought was an unusual combination that Chris was proposing for the redevelopment of the site. It included the establishment of a car wash inside the physical building of Toys R Us and then the construction of a 4-story hotel adjacent to it. And I'm sure you would agree with me that that combination was odd, or it seems odd to us. Certainly not odd to Chris, because this is not the first time that he has combined those two uses. And before I go further, Chris, why don't you come forward and at least introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you and Mercer Management do and why the combination of a car wash and a hotel isn't as odd as it seems to some of us.
I'll be glad to. Good evening. My name is Chris Vernon. I'm the principal for this project. So the overall concept here, we had it up on the screen a little while ago when we originally found the Toys R Us building that would be conducive. Our car wash business has grown. Our car wash business has grown substantially now in the auto wash brand. And basically, we saw the property. We realized that the building and the property itself were too large for just an auto wash. So what we did in turn was we thought, what other uses might work out well? We met with the township years ago. We gave them direction, guidance that we do. We own currently 8 hotels. We have affiliation with Hilton. We also have the hotels in Long Beach Island area. So we're owners and developers, and we maintain our properties for our own ownership. And basically, with that, we really take a sense of pride in how we keep up the properties, maintain them, and that it's really our core business is the family leisure business, which what drew us to the town, and also the idea of why we would put a hotel. Hilton has a new product. It's one of their flagship products that has done very well. It's a true hotel, has some really unique colors. It's festive. It's more conducive to smaller rooms, a little bit bigger, more utilization of the common area downstairs, which actually in this crazy world we live in today, you'd ask, why would you do a hotel now? And I think, this shall too pass. And in that, what's the hotel industry look like? I think truly the newer hotels, as they come online in 3 or 4 years, that's probably our realistic time frame, God willing, in this environment, that we're fortunate enough to be able to get through this and put a great nationally franchised hotel at this location. But it's very conducive to young families. They're smaller rooms, they're fun, they have little pods. And that's what drew us to the site to say this really could work. We petitioned Hilton, and there's no guarantees with Hilton. You have to petition them for a franchise. They do a market analysis. They determined that yes, they would be okay with putting their national flag at this location. We did get the green light and were awarded the flag for this location. And predominantly, it would be a Sesame Place hotel, really. It's fun. We would have a shuttle that would bring the people back and forth. And we thought that this would be a great opportunity for us to really fully utilize the property and take advantage of the empty parking lot in front of the auto wash that has been very successful for us. I hope that's
for now. So in the fall of 2018, as I said, we met with the township staff, and the first order of business was to focus on the renovation of the existing Toys R Us building. We went through some zoning issues with the staff, confirmed that that use would be permitted within the walls of the existing Toys R Us. And sometime shortly after that, Chris embarked on what took almost a year, from the fall of 2018 to the fall of 2019, almost November of 19, when the car wash opened. The car wash has been open now for just about a year, and hopefully all of you have had a chance to either see it or use it and recognize that it's an attraction and almost a destination in and of itself. As things progressed, we also needed to get some certain zoning relief associated with the hotel use. And as a result of that, we submitted an application in the fall of 18 that was heard by your zoning hearing board in December of 18, and a decision was issued in January of 19, granting certain items of relief associated with the hotel. While the car wash renovation was ongoing, we started to develop the plans for the hotel, which are in front of you this evening. We submitted the plans right as COVID started earlier this year, and with the delays associated with that, it's taken us a while to reach our point where we are tonight. We have received in the packets, I'm sure you've all seen, the multiple review letters from the various township consultants. We have review letters, several of them from Isaac's office. We have TPD, we have the fire marshal, we have your EAC, Bucks County Planning Commission. So we've had the opportunity to consider and review all of those review letters. We prepared and submitted a revised set of plans to address those comments, which are what triggered the second review letter from Remington Burnick. I'm pleased to stand here tonight to tell you that we have no issue with any of the review comments in any of the review letters that we've received to date. To the extent we haven't already complied, any lingering remaining comments are will comply comments. So we have no real issue with any of that. I think what we'd like to do, though, is sort of walk you through pictorially, with Justin's help, the plans that make up tonight's application. What's on the screen right now, and Justin can come forward and explain it, is basically an aerial of what the condition existed at the time that Chris purchased the property in the summer of 2018. And Justin, you want to come forward, explain those couple images that you have?
Sure. This image is actually a little more current than when Chris purchased the property. This is as current of this year when the renovations to the car wash are complete. You do see the stacking lanes for the car wash. You see all the renovation for the vacuum stalls. and then the entrance into the car wash. So this is after the Toys R Us was converted. This is at current conditions as of today. As you can see, there's no improvements have been done to the parking lot out front, which was the existing parking lot for Toys R Us. There's no need for that parking lot to service the auto wash. The few staff members that do park vehicles are available on the side of the building, but that parking lot is sitting vacant today in its current form. It's going to come up later, so I want to call attention to the fact that the parking stalls along the front of Lincoln Highway are in existing condition off our property. It's something we're improving as part of this. I'm going to skip that one. We'll start here. So this is the proposal, is to propose a 4-story Hilton True Hotel entirely within that front parking lot area. We're reducing impervious on site. It fits entirely within that area with no impact to the existing operations of the auto wash, maintaining the same entrance points off of Lincoln Highway. Already had communication with PennDOT. They've approved our traffic study. It's important to note that the combination of both the car wash and the hotel generates less traffic than Toys R Us did. So PennDOT is asking us to install a right turn lane on Lincoln Highway and to reconstruct this island slightly to current standards. That is adequate to serve the needs of the hotel and the car wash. And we will talk about it later too, but there are intersection improvements, which I'm sure the board is aware of, taking place or in the process between Target and the mall for that intersection, which is going to significantly improve that to a traditional T intersection with turn lanes on all directions. This is a colorized version of our site plan showing the layout. So that's 104 parking spaces, 4-story hotel, full circulation around the building, which was a condition of both the fire marshal and of Hilton's brand itself. We do have a loading/drop-off area out front. And as I said, 104 parking spaces. This is just a black and white version of that same plan. I will call attention to, as part of the reviews that Ed mentioned going back and forth with the traffic engineer, township engineer, we are providing pedestrian circulation, which is going to help in the immediate, and it's also going to tie in with the proposed improvements to the intersection at the Target Oxford Valley Mall intersection as well. This is a floor plan, prototypical floor plan of the Hilton True Hotel. We're proposing 92 rooms. Their flagship is between 98 or 92. 92 is when you have a pool in the facility. So these 6 rooms come out and there's a pool on the first floor. Again, this is more geared towards families, geared towards younger, and geared towards Sesame Place. So we think the pool will do better and will offer more amenities in this area. We also need to call attention. There's no formal dining room in this hotel. It's more of a kitchenette, continental breakfast, pod lounge area. There's no full service kitchen. There's no full service food for meeting rooms and everything else. So it's more of a continental breakfast, more of a, again, not during COVID, but more of a common area in the front. So I think with that, we're going to do waivers.
There are, as part of the plan review, Isaac's office has identified 5 separate waivers associated with our plan. We can take them one at a time, although we've talked about them before. I think it would be good just to make sure everybody's aware of what they are. The first one deals with our request to grade within 5 feet of the property line. That is unavoidable, candidly, because as Justin's plans indicate, right now there is paving that runs up to and in fact beyond the property limits, which has to be removed in order to establish the new setback. So we would be eliminating an existing nonconformity by eliminating a lot of impervious, but we need to grade within 5 feet of the property line to remove that impervious that's going to come out in the locations that you see on the plan. One of the other items that Justin just touched upon is your ordinance would suggest that we need to have a formal loading berth. Justin can comment on that, but we don't have a loading berth that you would see typically in an industrial setting. We have an area where vehicles and trucks can pull up and load and unload. It effectively serves the same purpose as the loading berth that you would not have here because we don't have a warehouse or other industrial use. The third item deals with the distance between the front of a parking space and the building, and Justin can both highlight on the plan several places where that occurs and what the rationale for that is.
Based on the use, given that there's a lot of pedestrian traffic in and out, parking spaces are usually located closer to the building. Based on the way the site lays out, there's a few areas around the building where we're not able to provide the full 15-foot width. That the building is going to be fully sprinklered from a fire safety standpoint, and ADA standards require parking spaces to be located as close as possible to the front door. So as you see, there's a number of areas in the surrounding area where these parking spaces are located immediately adjacent to the buildings. We're not proposing that. All of the parking spaces are going to have at least a 6-foot sidewalk and a 4 to 5 foot grass area between it. And again, it's only at a few areas along the building. For the most part, we are providing more than the 15-foot of separation between the edge of parking and the building.
The last two waivers are somewhat related, and they involve the setback of spaces from both the right-of-way of a street as well as the arterial roadway. And perhaps Justin can explain both of those because they are related.
And this is what I alluded to earlier. So the parking spaces right now are located off of our property. So as part of our design, we're pulling them onto our property. You can't see it now because you still have the aerial in the background, but you can see it a little better here. So the property line is the dark black line that runs along the front. We're proposing a 3-foot grass strip, which is going to increase. There's still another 30 feet of grass between us and the roadway. So we're actually pulling it onto our property another 4 feet, improving a nonconformity, but it's still a non-conforming issue because your ordinance requires 15 to 30 feet because it's an ultimate right of way and it's also an arterial road. So again, we're pulling it in to offer a grass strip. We're going to be landscaping that grass strip, but it's to the extent it's still an existing nonconformity as part of this subdivision that we have to address with a waiver.
So those are the waivers that we are seeking. And other than that, to the extent the board felt comfortable in recommending approval, that approval would be subject to our ongoing compliance with the various review letters that are outstanding. Although I think we've taken care of almost all of them, but to the extent there are any other loose ends, those would all be a will comply type situation for us. So I think the plan is as clean as probably we can get it and probably well within the realm of support for the plan given its current status. I understand your consultants are participating either in person or virtually, and I think they will certainly comment on their own, but that's where we stand tonight with the plan, and we're here to answer any other questions. Either Chris, if you have any questions for Chris or Justin or myself, we can deal with them.
Great, thank you, Mr. Murphy. And let's go first to our professionals. Mr. Kessler, Mr. Esposito, or Mr. Worsta, do any of you have anything you'd like to add or highlight from your review letters that we see here before we jump in with our questions?
This is Mr. Kessler. I'd be happy to speak to our review letter. The applicant mentioned that they've addressed most of our comments, which is correct. The comments that do remain as far as what's included on the plan in certain areas and details is relatively minor. It is correct that the site right now is a parking lot. As far as the aspect of a site development is concerned, is it decreasing the impervious? So for a stormwater stance, even though it's in an area that has its kind of overall issues with where the water ends up, the site specifically does decrease the impervious that's in the proposed development. One thing to mention, and the applicant can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they're also requesting the approval as preliminary and final all at once, so that would be just an added waiver to the list.
Correct.
That's asked for tonight. But that's all I have at this time. Unless there's other questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Great, thank you. Anything from legal or traffic, or should I move on to the board comments and questions?
This is Phil Worsta. Hi there. I just wanted to respond that they have complied with our review letter, and they will be working with us, meaning the township and PennDOT, regarding access, right turn lane, and coordination with pedestrian flow, really along the frontage to the intersection that is now the kind of the messy jug handle one at Lincoln Highway.
Great, thank you, Mr. Worsta. Let me go to the board. Who from the board would like to make a comment or a question for the applicant here? Go ahead, Ms. Payne.
I have a question, and someone can definitely correct me if I'm wrong. In fall of 2018, when you went to the zoning board, was it to ask for this to be zoned for a hotel, or was that already in place when you went before the board?
No. When we met with the staff in the fall of 2018, they acknowledged that the car wash use was a use that would be approved as a permitted use, but the hotel use did require a variance, and that's what we secured in December of 2018, was relief to permit the hotel to be located there.
Okay. And Jim, I don't know, maybe if you can hear me, this might be a question for you. Was at any point that did anybody try and appeal the variance from that zoning board decision, or is that not something we have the capacity to do?
No, that decision was issued in January of 2019. No one appealed it, and we're well past the time frame to appeal any zoning decision.
Okay, so far that's all I have, but thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Corporal, you're on mute if you have a question or comment.
Thank you, Amy. Yeah, I just had a question about the traffic. I had heard mentioned that the traffic wasn't supposed to be any more than when the Toys R Us was there. I just want to know, when was that traffic study conducted? What time of the year, and how long ago was that?
If you'd like, Justin can comment first, and then Phil probably wants to respond, because it's referenced in the TPD review letter that the hotel is a light traffic generator and certainly would be less than Toys R Us. But Justin, if you want to address the timing of the preparation of the study.
Sure. The study was conducted in February of 2020. And again, it was submitted and reviewed by both the township traffic engineer and PennDOT. And they both found that, as Phil noted in his review letter, that it's not a heavy traffic generator, and the combination of both the car wash and the hotel are less than the Toys R Us from a trip generation standpoint.
So I'm wondering how they can determine that if you had that in February, when obviously most of your traffic from the hotel is going to be from Sesame Place. Sesame Place wasn't opened at that time.
Sure. No, it's there are correction factors for that, but I believe, and Mr. Worsta, if you would agree, I think that the increase in traffic from Sesame Place would not be enough to trigger this to be a degeneration in traffic in the adjacent roadways.
Yeah, I could clarify a little bit for you, Ms. Corporal. The issue of the trip generation is really the amount of traffic that any land use is going to use, independent of what's going on the street at the time. So you're right that in the summer, you're going to get more traffic, say, on Lincoln Highway or Oxford Valley Road with Sesame Place, but the amount of the trip generation of the hotel itself, or whatever the land use would be, really is not going to change that much. It's not based upon what Sesame Place does, although that's the time frame that we looked at when we evaluated this. The trip generation is really the the maximum amount of traffic that's going to be generated by that site. So I don't have the numbers specifically in front of me, but it's like 32 cars will come in or 24 cars will come in the evening peak hour, like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 30 will leave in the peak hour. It's that type of trip generation. It's not a heavy use as far as traffic goes. Our biggest concern is making sure pedestrians are accommodated and that it's a safe circulation and the access, and that they are working with the developer and PennDOT next door with regard to the new Target driveway.
Thank you.
And Mr. Tosti, you're the toughest for me to see the way the screens are arranged. Did you have any questions or comments?
Yeah. So I just want to ask, I guess, Mr. Worcester this question. With concerns with the traffic that the study they did, and you're saying it's 24 during the morning peak hours and 30, I believe, in the afternoon. But is that just for the hotel itself, or is that also for the car wash too? Combined.
I think those numbers, Mr. Tosti, that are cited in their study are for just the hotel. And I have the study I have right now happens to be on my computer, and I'm not sure exactly how to pull it up. Maybe Justin can answer that question a little bit more with regard to the car wash traffic as it relates to the hotel.
Sure. Mr. Orser, we treated the existing car wash as the existing condition, and the hotel is proposed. So both numbers were incorporated into that number. So it was the numbers quoted with the 26:18 for the AM peak hour and then 24:23 for the PM peak hour. They were all just for the hotel, but the overall traffic generation for the trip generation comparison between the Toys R Us and the hotel took into consideration all. So it took into
it was combined.
Both, correct. So we did take into account the car wash, but for the purposes of the trip count, the car wash was treated as existing, but all those numbers were taken into consideration for the existing today, which is the car wash and hotel versus the Toys R Us.
So let's stay on the traffic or the pedestrian traffic there. So the plan you have for pedestrian traffic, we don't have. And you said that's working in it's a work in process with PennDOT, correct?
Correct.
So my concern there is when the Toys R Us was there, you would not have foot traffic crossing that highway to maybe go to the Sesame Place, go to maybe the some of the food eateries there, the TGIF, the Bertucci's, if they wanted to eat. When would we see something as far as that for pedestrians? Because that's a big concern with people. Obviously, you said there's no eatery there and there's only Continental. So people who would stay there would want to go eat somewhere, and sometimes you end up walking instead of getting in your vehicle. So they would have to cross that highway, which is a 4-lane highway, as you know.
Correct.
And I'd like to just hear how you plan to address that.
Sure. And if I may, can I have the slides back up? Is that an issue? Your Mr. Vernon did testify to the fact that they are going to be providing a shuttle to Sesame Place and to the surrounding areas. So to that concern, there is going to be a shuttle available from the hotel at all times to wherever they need to go. So to not encourage that foot traffic. And if we can go to the existing aerial, you will see that there is, as part of our plan, and I'm going to flip through a couple here, we're providing a walkway from the front door across here, which is going to take you to the signalized intersection, where it's going to be worked in accordance with the new planned improvements for that intersection to provide safe pedestrian access. That is an issue with this intersection today, is that they don't have pedestrian access, which is why it's just the driving force behind the intersection improvements. Again, the jug handle is just confusing, and that's why they're trying to improve that. But pedestrian accessibility and safety is the highlight of that whole improvement plan.
I mean, with the way that intersection is now, an individual would have to cross over that 4-lane highway and then go across the access road to that. and then even go across that other access road in order to get in there? Because there is no walkway in there.
There is no walkway.
Okay.
That
No,
is the,
I believe there is a walkway in the middle of the light.
there is, correct. You
Right.
just have to get to that walkway. There's a safe crossing in the middle of the light.
So
But they got to cross over that way to get to that. Yeah. And I hear you with the shuttle, but I mean, I stayed in plenty of hotels, and there's plenty of times that the shuttle isn't always accessible because it's making a run here or making a run there. So people do tend to walk instead of, and especially if they're hungry or they're going to meet something, they intend to just not wait for the shuttle. And that is a concern of mine.
Understood.
One of the waivers that you're asking for is the waiver for the, let me see what that is, a loading space with a minimum width of 14 feet. And I think I heard Mr. Murphy say that that is going to be a dual drop-off area and a loading area?
Sure. And just to clarify, we are providing the size of the loading space that's required. That 14 by 55 is provided in this area out front here, which is going to be the loading / drop-off zone. The ordinance requires us to have a separate designated loading zone. This use does not require that. They don't have that kind of traffic with trucks. Anything that gets dropped off for the minimum drop-offs that they have can be dropped off in that area out front. So it's a combination that we're asking for a waiver from, not saying that we're not providing it. So the loading zone is provided within that drop-off area out front.
But the one part of the drop-off is for deliveries and things like that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So if that's tied up with a delivery and a individual needed to check in or check out and they happen to be handicapped, there would be no way for them to access that front because of the loading being
No, I mean, to answer your question, there are handicap accessible spots for one. And yeah, so there is an opportunity for there to be a vehicle unloading while someone's coming to drop off, but there are going to be staff members in the building making sure that doesn't happen. I mean, they'll make sure that there's a handicapped person coming, that the loading van has to move or circle back. So it's not going to be an unstaffed hotel. And to the point, there'll be someone working at the front desk and available to help facilitate that if that does occur.
And I think we all have to understand that we're going to time the delivery so as not to be in direct conflict with patrons that are going to stay at the hotel. So we're not going to have food deliveries or whatever kind of deliveries come at the same time. You'll stage them so that they're not in conflict with residents that are coming and going. So,
well, that's really uncontrollable because you don't know when
no, it's
everybody's
controllable
stepping
by
in or-
us in terms of when the deliveries come. We don't control when patrons come
Yeah,
necessarily.
you can't control when
But we can control the
patrons come.
deliveries.
That's what I was talking about. Okay. So I just got a few questions on the one letter from Mr. Kessler, and it's the letter dated July 28, 2020. And it's number 33. And on it, it says, on plan sheet for clean out detail, somewhere the stormwater cleanouts are used on the plans or remove the detail. And then it has a comment, the cleanouts could not be located on the plans. Please clarify. Can you clarify that?
Sure. That's really just a plan cleanup issue. We're providing, I think there was testimony that we're removing impervious. What we never really got into the fact is there's no stormwater on site right now. As part of our project, we're not only providing stormwater for the hotel, but for all the new impervious, for all the disturbance that occurs. We actually have 2 underground basins. You'll have a basin that's underground here. That's an underground infiltration basin, and a separate underground basin on this area. That's a detention basin. So both of the basins, we're providing a significant amount of stormwater management to comply both with the township standards and PADEP. What the comment refers to is because it's underground, he wants to see, Mr. Kessler wants to see the actual clean out for us to service the manholes that are underground. So it's a matter of just putting a 6-inch standpipe with a concrete ring around it so that over time, the township engineer, our own service guys can go in and see if there's any accumulation of sediment and clean it out. It's a comment really of a plan cleanup. The details are on the plan. It's just we need to see where those cleanouts are actually occurring in the basin.
Now, will we see that prior to construction or is that after construction?
Oh,
starts?
before construction. Yeah, that's a simple. That takes me 5 minutes to add to a plan. That's just
Any lingering remaining changes we have to make would be done before the plans would be recorded, signed, and our agreements executed and funded. So yes, all those things will be done before we do any work on the site.
Okay. Now, staying on that same document, and it's going down, and it was one of the granted variances that were granted to you, which I have to tell you, one of the big issues I have with this is stormwater management. And it's the fourth one, section 500-204, to allow a 40% floor ratio for the car wash and hotel use, where 28% maximum is allowed. Now, my concern is that you're taking away the pervious space, and you're making it more of a building. And the stormwater from where we are located there would normally either evaporate or sit there in the puddle. Now we're going to send it into a basin, like you said, and then that basin is going to lead most likely down into the Twin Oaks section where the creek is, because it'll run to the creek. And Twin Oaks already floods out enough, especially around the football or the baseball fields and Trenton Road and the ice cream parlor. And I'm thinking that with this stormwater management that you have and putting more water down into that Twin Oaks section, we are going to see more flooding problems, because the water would not be evaporating and sitting in that in the lot, because we were removing that. And the residents down in Twin Oaks are going to be the ones that suffer from this.
Okay, so a couple of points to your question. I'll go through one by one. First off, the building floor ratio, that really, it's kind of deceiving, because the entire property right now is impervious. So when you look at stormwater, all stormwater really is concerned about is impervious. So we're reducing impervious on site, which is going to have a benefit to the downstream. So that's the first point. The second point, roof area in the stormwater world is actually encouraged over parking lot area, because it's clean runoff. So anything that falls on your roof it doesn't have the debris from cars, oils, salts. It's actually a benefit. So when DEP and the township engineer look at roof runoff, it's actually considered clean runoff. So it doesn't have to go through the same level of treatment that the rest of the stormwater from the parking lot goes through. That said, we're still providing. So there's no stormwater on site right now, which means that anything that hits that parking lot goes to one of a few inlets in the parking lot and goes immediately to that stream. That's where you see the flooding, is when you don't have the holdback of the storm event, and everything just goes from the parking lot to an inlet right to the stream. That's the storm surge. As part of stormwater design, the whole principle is to detain, treat, and then slow the release. So we're providing all of that. As I mentioned before, the first basin located here is an infiltration basin. So that anything that hits that basin that's going to be completely removed from that watershed. So if that's, I don't know the number, but how many cubic feet that we're required to do here, that's completely coming out of the watershed. The rest of it is going to be held and then slowly detained. So as the storm passes, for the other areas like the mall that don't have any stormwater management, then it'll be slowly released after the storm surge. Same happens on the back end here. That's a detention basin. I mentioned that the roof is clean. So anything that comes off of the roof does not go immediately to the creek. It goes to the detention basin where it's held, and they have an outlet control structure, which is probably a 3 to 5 inch hole that slowly releases that water. So if there's flooding at the Twin Oaks section, this is going to help it. This is going to be a huge benefit to it, because right now that parking lot is just an instant storm surge to whatever's going downstream.
Okay.
And then also too, to water quality, every single one of the inlets that we're putting in are fitted with water quality inserts, which are hydrocarbon cartridges that as the water passes through them, any impurities, anything that's undesirable actually gets filtered out. So the water going into the stream is not only at a lesser rate, but it's actually cleaner. So this is a huge benefit to a sea of asphalt that's out there right now, because not only are you getting the benefit of the hotel, you're also getting the benefit of stormwater management.
I'm not buying. I can't be sold on. I'm not. I don't. I hear what you're saying.
We can ask.
I'm not.
Do you want to ask Isaac? He reviewed it. I think let's put it this way: your ordinance is tough. DEP's tough, more tough. We have complied. We already have our NPDS permit, which means that the state thinks that we met water quality, rate reduction, and volume control.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Costi, I'll add. I mentioned before, like the drainage area that's going to Twin Oaks is quite a large area. This particular site is within that, and what they have proposed is a reduction of the current impervious.
Okay.
Not to say it's going to solve the issues in the drainage area. But I do agree with the applicant's engineer's statements as far as some of the proposed improvements they have for control of water in that particular area that's currently the parking lot.
So I'm on, I guess, the next letter dated July 28th from Mr. Kessler again, addressed to Mr. Ennis. And I'm looking at like number 20, where it talks about the fire marshal should review and approve this plan sheet. And it says here, obtain a approval letter for the fire truck vehicle movements. Did we get that?
We did reach out to the fire marshal. We haven't received that letter yet, but we do provide what is being requested.
And then the next one where it says, please obtain an approval letter for the fire hydrant location. Did we
Correct.
get that?
We did provide the spacing. We reached out. We have not received that clearance letter yet, but we did comply with what was requested. So,
And then the next one is back to the loading dock where it says two activities cannot occupy the same space at the same time. The loading space cannot occupy the patron drop-off area.
that is
But that's one of your waivers that you're
correct.
asking for.
Correct. Thank you.
All right. There was one other thing that I had from our environmental committee.
And Mr. Tossi, to your earlier point, that's the reason that the ordinance states that, is that it sees the loading and other use in the same area as a conflict, like your concerns you mentioned. So that's the reason they're requesting the waiver, but that's why it's in the ordinance, is that dual use of a similar space. I will mention as well, because you brought some of the pedestrian concerns, just to fill a little bit further of the timeline this past summer. I didn't mention earlier that it was before the planning commission and at their July meeting. They had denied that at that meeting, but subsequent to that, these plans and most of what's on the slides tonight is the revised plan, and our review letter is from the revised set that was received dated July 13th, which was after that planning commission. Just to fill in some of the timeline over the summer there.
Then
Thank you, Mr. Oh, go ahead. Did you have one more thing, Mr. Tosti?
Yeah, please.
Go ahead.
Then under the Environmental Advisory Council review, do you have that?
Yes, I do.
And it's, where did I see that at? Where they recommended that sufficient sewer, it's on page 4 down the bottom, where the committee recommends that sufficient sewer capacity be evaluated by the township and DEP, and recommends the township verify the installation of a grease interceptor for this building. Is that something that you plan on using?
Grease interceptor?
Yeah.
If it's required, we will provide it. We'll work with the sewer authority to see if that's necessary.
Okay.
Again, there's no full kitchen, so we're obviously provided if it's required.
And then number 6 on there, I already addressed that, but that really is a concern of mine, is pedestrian traffic there and bicycle traffic. But that's all I have, Mr. House. Thank you.
I'm glad you ended with that, Mr. Tosti, because that's, as I looked at the plans myself and all those substantial review letters, that's the number one thing that stuck out for me is, as somebody with a lot of little kids, I know that the temptation to dash across that street might be overwhelming. And it's so concerning to me that with your understanding, Mr. Giannotti, I'd like to actually add the shuttle service as a condition of approval, because I really can't see this project being viable or safe without a continuously operational shuttle service. And so you've said you would provide it, but I'd like to make it a condition of approval as well. So to kick us off to the next phase of our discussion, I'll go ahead and make a motion. Sorry, did somebody have something?
I was just going to have Mr. Vernon confirm to you his acceptance of that condition that you just described. That's all.
Oh, yes, please, Mr. Vernon. Do you want to talk more about the shuttle service you have intended, and that you're good with that being a condition of approval?
Yes, Madam Chair, person. I will be more than glad to agree to supply a shuttle for the guest services to be at the property.
Okay.
And how often would that shuttle service run?
The shuttle will be on property, actually. It'll be owned by the hotel and it will remain on the property. Basically, we have them at some of the other locations where the folks from within the hotel, they either take reservations or someone's coming and going, or they're on radio, but it will be and remain on property. Basically, it'll run whenever the staff needs it to pick up or drop off one of our guests.
So it'd be continuous?
Yes.
Okay, so to move us, thank you for that. To move us to the next phase of the discussion, I'll make a motion to approve preliminary and final land development plan approval for 2345 Lincoln LLC for its new hotel land development located at 2345 East Lincoln Highway, TMP number 22-040-026-008 SLD number 20-69 with the following conditions. And I believe these conditions encompass the many review letters that Mr. Tosti referenced. These are all shall comply and shall submit type statements. Number one, applicant shall comply with the review letters of the Township Engineer, Township Traffic Engineer, Bucks County Planning Commission, Township Fire Marshal, and Township Environmental Advisory Council. Number two, applicant shall comply with all requirements of the Middletown Township Subdivision and Land Development Ordinance and the Middletown Township Zoning Ordinance unless relief was granted by the body having jurisdiction. Number three, applicant shall obtain PennDOT approval of highway occupancy permit and provide a copy of such approval to the township prior to the issuance of any building permits. Number four, the applicant shall submit construction cost estimates and enter into a land development agreement and financial security agreement with the township in a form reasonably acceptable to the township solicitor. Number five, applicant shall enter into a stormwater maintenance agreement with the township for maintenance of any and all stormwater management facilities shown on the plan or located on the property in a form reasonably satisfactory to the township solicitor. Number six, the applicant shall be required to pay Middletown Township for any outstanding administration and professional fees, as well as place into escrow with the township the estimated cost for administrative and professional fees. And number seven, the applicant shall provide a continuously operational shuttle service to Sesame Place, the Oxford Valley Mall, and eateries along Middletown Boulevard. Is there a second? Okay, hearing no second, I'll take another motion.
I'll make a motion to deny the preliminary and final land improvement development plan approval for 2345 Lincoln LLC for its new hotel land development located at 2345 East Lincoln Highway, TMP number 22-040-026-008S/LD number 20-69 for the following reasons. One, the impact that this proposed hotel will have pedestrian traffic and the safety of pedestrians along the section of East Lincoln Highway as shown in the traffic impact study required under 440-303D7 of SALDA. Such a hotel would increase and cause real safety concerns with pedestrians trying to cross East Lincoln Highway to the mall or Sesame Place and other commercial and entertainment venues. This is detriment to the public health, safety, and general welfare of the community, as noted in the purpose and intent sections of SALDO 44-102 and 103. Two, the impact and exuberation that this proposed hotel would have on the existing traffic issues along this section of East Lincoln Highway, as shown in the traffic impact study required under 440-303D7 of SALDO. Such a hotel would increase traffic more than is currently existing, further disturb the flow of traffic, create safety issues, and would be detriment to the public health, safety, and general welfare of the community, as noted in the purpose and intent sections of SALDO 440-102 and 103. Number three, applicant failed to establish an undue hardship in accordance with 440-602 of SALDO for requested waiver number 2 and failed to show why it would be unreasonable for applicant to comply with section 440-421E4 of SALDO, providing the edge of parking spaces to be closer than 15 feet from the outside wall of the building. The applicant seems to be trying to squeeze the hotel and its required parking into its small parking lot. Number four, applicant failed to establish an undue hardship in accordance with 440-602 of SALDO for other waivers requests and failed to show why it would be unreasonable for applicant to bring the lot into compliance with section 440-407E8, 440-421E9, 440-421E19, and section 440-426J1 regarding the grading closer than 5 feet to the property line, edge of parking spaces closer than 15 feet to the property line, and closer than 30 feet from the roadway. Even though these situations may already exist at the property, the applicant should comply with these sections for safety concerns for visitors and guests that come along with the hotel this close to a major highway.
Sorry, having trouble coming off mute. All right, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. There's a motion and a second. Now we will hear public comment. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? And I'll look to the room first. I can't see you right now, but if you have a public comment, please step up to the microphone. Okay, I see none. And so now I will look to Mr. Valla. Do we have any remote public comment coming in?
There are none.
And Ms. Tealy-Cools, did you receive anything via any of our other means of commenting that is relevant now?
Yes, we did receive one email from Elizabeth Pritchard, 1075 West Gillum Ave, in opposition to the application. I oppose the building of the hotel on Lincoln Highway. It is too congested there and too close to a school. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other public comment, is there any further board comment or questions? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the denial, please respond with aye.
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 All those opposed to the denial, nay. The motion to deny carries 3-1 with one abstention.
Thank you.
And Mr. Kizak, I will hand you the gavel back.
Thank you, Ms. Strauss. Next on the agenda is consideration of authorizing advertisement of ordinance number 20-8, amending the pension ordinance. Ms. Tealy-Cools.
Thank you very much. A general housekeeping item, you will recall that we approved an amendment to our pension plan after the collective bargaining agreement with the police department was completed. Our actuary actually found a minor error in our ordinance amendment that we passed back in July. And so it's been re-advertised to correct the very minor issue. And basically it was related to the survivor benefit. And what we found was detrimental to the officers. And it was not exactly what we had negotiated. So this will bring everything into compliance with our collective bargaining agreement.
Thank you, Ms. Tealy-Cools. I will move to authorize advertisement and drafting of an ordinance to amend the police pension plan. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Are there any board questions?
I have a quick question. I received an email or two from some residents about this. I just want to know if somebody could clarify for the public how this is different from the grant that we had denied earlier this year and why we couldn't use grant funds to help fund the police department instead of offering an early retirement incentive.
This is not related to the early retirement incentive. This is just clarifying the pension ordinance. The early retirement is scheduled to be adopted at your January meeting. Do you want me to try to answer that, or can we defer that?
I was going to ask that same question. This is just for advertising, and this is not for us to approve. And then in January, we would approve this.
This isn't even the same thing, right? Is this not?
These are two totally different things.
Yeah. Okay.
Two totally different things. You're authorizing advertisement of this. You authorized advertisement of the early retirement incentive at your last meeting. Both ordinances will be on your January 4th reorg agenda.
So this is just, so it's completely clear, this is not the early retirement program. This is simply the change to the pension plan, correct?
Correct.
That was actually done in the police contract that
Right.
we ratified.
Right. Correct.
Okay,
Thank you.
everybody good? Any other board questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. Thank you. Next on the agenda is consideration of approving the 2021 budget and budget resolution number 20-33R. Ms. Dealy-Cools.
Thank you very much. The board authorized advertisement of the preliminary budget at the last meeting, and the budget has been appropriately advertised. We continue to track revenues. We are very optimistic that our projections will hold through the year. We are ready to have the document posted as a final budget online beginning tomorrow if the board decides to move forward. I haven't received any feedback or public input since our last meeting, and I would just turn it over to the board. You would need to make a motion to approve the budget and also the budget resolution, which is in your packets, which establishes the tax rates for the coming year.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2021 budget as well as budget resolution number 20-33R. Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions? Seeing none, are there any questions from the public? Yes, ma'am. If you don't mind, just for the sake of the record, just state your name and address one more time. Thank you.
Sure. Virginia King, 313 White Swan Way in Langhorne, Pennsylvania. I just wanted to make sure that does include the intersection. The 2021 budget does include the intersection of Swift and Woodburn.
Correct. The 2021 budget that there is currently a motion to adopt includes as a priority one capital project both the road improvements and the installation of a traffic signal at the Swift Road intersection.
Okay. And the other only question I had was in both the 2019 and the 2020 budgets, and I believe they were both the approved budgets. On page 178 of the 2019 budget, I saw the same intersection and the traffic light sequence that was planned for that, and also the 2020 budget on, I think it was page 174 or 175, also included the same intersection. I guess my next question is how, once this has been to a vote and we've all approved it, what can we do to help push that project forward so that it actually gets completed in 2021? Because I know you've been reminding us that this is just a vote and the next step, there's other steps that need to be taken.
Yeah, and so I'm glad you brought that up because I think I misspoke when I was responding to Ms. Salvucci's comment about the budget. Correct, it was indeed in the budget. It didn't happen for, frankly, financial reasons. We suspended all non-essential capital projects due to COVID this year, and so that one just was on the chopping block. The answer to your question generally, I mean, there's no simple answer other than is to stay engaged as you have been. I mean, you and your neighborhood are without question the driving force behind this. You're the reason why it's not only in the budget, but it's in the budget as a priority one project. Keep doing what you're doing. It will be back before us in 2021. And it's always public involvement, public input, and public pressure that keeps these things at the forefront. But for all intents and purposes, it's in our plan, right? It's in our plan for 2021 to get this done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Kechek, I'll just mention that in 2021, if this project is to move forward in the earlier parts, the first thing that the neighborhood and the public would probably see would be the survey crew at the site. So I'd be happy to share my information if you need to contact me to just get status of what anybody is doing that you see out there. I'd be happy to receive any calls that people have questions about.
Thank you, Mr. Kessler. I appreciate that. Is there any other public comment on the motion to approve the 2021 budget and budget resolution? I'm being told there is none. So there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Carries 5-0. Next on the agenda, I see Mr. Valla walking to the podium, is consideration of authorizing release of a request for proposals for a fire service study. Mr. Valla.
Good evening, Board of Supervisors. So before you is a request to issue a request for proposals, authorizing advertisement to do so, to retain a consultant to conduct a fire services study. The consultant would engage all stakeholders and service providers of our fire services in the township to complete an objective assessment of municipal fire services. Currently, our fire services are provided by 4 volunteer fire companies and supported by the fire marshal's staff with daytime response. This project was originally planned in 2020, carries a budget of $35,000, and we expect it to be completed by summer of 2021. And the ultimate recommendation will include potential changes to fire services in the township.
Thank you, Mr. Valla. Are there any board questions for Mr. Valla at this time, or I can accept the motion?
I'll make a motion to move to authorize advertisement and drafting of a request for proposal to conduct a comprehensive fire service study.
Thank you, Ms. Corporal. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions at this time?
I would just like to say this is something that is really long overdue. Fire services are having shortages not only in our community, but in the county and in the state and all across the country. We have to figure a way out to make sure that we can continue to have these services provided to our township. So I'm hoping that this is one way that we can start attracting some volunteers and some people to the fire services. So.
Thank you, Mr. Tosti. Are there any other board questions or comments? Seeing none, are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Valla. Next on the agenda, consideration of awarding the Middletown Township Banking Services contract. I believe we have our finance director, Ms. Bendari. Yes, Ms. Bendari.
Hi there. Good evening, everyone. Yes. So currently we are we rely on TD Bank as our primary bank as part of a yearly assessment that we do every few years. We decided to put out an RFP. That RFP was advertised by the Board of Supervisors on September 8th, 2020, and was we asked several banks to submit back their proposals by October 30th of 2020. After reviewing many proposals, the finance team as well as the township manager had 2 interviews that they conducted. And after careful consideration, we've decided to go ahead and award the banking RFP to a new bank, Republic Bank, who just came in with a great proposal for us, some great services, as well as a want to build a great relationship with us. So we're just asking that the board move forward to authorize this as long as they agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bendari. Do any of the board members have questions for Ms. Bendari at this time? Or if not, I can accept the motion.
I move to award a contract to Republic Bank for Middletown Township.
Thank you, Mr. Tosti. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Strauss. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions at this time?
Make a comment. I actually I found out a lot about banking during this process. And one of the things that I found out that this Republic Bank is a local community bank, which is something that is really near and dear to our hearts here in the community because it's a local bank. I wasn't aware that TD Bank was a Canadian bank. So we're bringing our banking back into our area instead of having it outside. I think our relations with them will also improve because they are closer and they're more of a community than having to do outreach to somebody outside of not only the country, but outside of this area to get our issues resolved. So I commend you for the work that you guys did on this, and I'm supported wholeheartedly.
If I might just add also, the relationship, the locality was important, but also their proposal provided a locked-in interest rate for us. And so financially, it made sense.
Thank you. I forget, do we have a motion yet? And a second?
Yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries 5-0. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for telling me where we are. Next on the agenda, consideration of authorizing preparation and advertisement of an ordinance regarding the apartment inspection program.
Thank you. One of the goals that we had as we have shifted responsibilities in the fire marshal's office toward daytime response is a plan to move all apartment inspections to the Department of Building and Zoning. You all know that we have rental inspections that are already conducted, what we refer to as the HCT inspections at tenant change. And what we need to do is we need to merge these two programs together. Our staff is recommending that we create a more comprehensive overall apartment inspection program that is done every 2 years rather than every 1 year. And we will continue for tenant changes. And so because this is the last meeting of the year, we're asking for the board's authorization to both prepare and advertise an ordinance so that we might have it ready for you to approve on January 4th in time to start the new program with the new year.
Thank you, Ms. Dealy-Cools. I move to authorize preparation and advertisement of an ordinance creating a combined apartment inspection program. Is there a second?
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions? Are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. Thank you. Next on the agenda is a brief, and I'll stress brief, COVID-19 update, but we did want to, just because there have been some changes, take an opportunity to hear from our Fire Marshal, Mr. McGuire.
Good evening. We are seeing COVID-19 really exploding throughout the United States, in Pennsylvania and in Bucks County. So the hospitals are really becoming very taxed. The ambulance services are out on a regular basis. They've been doing more calls to the hospitals than what they do in a normal time frame. So we're really trying to encourage everybody out in the community to do the basic things to keep themselves and each other safe. Wearing the masks, washing their hands, not being in large gatherings with other people. Again, we're really trying to reduce the number of hospitalizations that are out there. St. Mary's right now is seeing very high numbers. On many days over the last week, they've seen more now than what they were seeing before in the spring. So again, we're really trying to reduce that down. Just to give a number out there, one day last week, there were 67 ambulance transports in a 24-hour period to St. Mary's. So again, we're just trying to bring a little bit of perspective in, trying to get everybody to do the basics to prevent this from running. So it is not all bad though. We do have a vaccine that's coming out in relatively short order. It looks like there's going to be 3 of them. We were on a conference call with the Federal Emergency Management Agency earlier this week, or I'm sorry, earlier last week. All the days are starting to run together. And they were giving us the basics of how their plan is to roll it out, what that's going to look like. But I will tell you, the vaccine, as quick as it is coming, there's still a time frame after the vaccine gets out into the community that we still have to wait in order to develop that immunity once they get given the either the one shot or the two shot system that they have developed. And that's typically 31 days. So there's definitely light at the end of the tunnel. But if everybody can really just be vigilant and do their part, wearing the mask, washing their hands, not being in large gatherings, it would really be helpful for the emergency services and the hospitals.
Thank you very much, Mr. McGuire, and thank you for everything that you and your crew are doing every day. Do any board members have questions for Mr. McGuire at this time? Okay, and then if not, we'll have
Thank you.
Mr. Copera, our Director of Park and Recreation. Thank you, Mr. McGuire. Yes, Mr. Copera.
Good evening. I just, to dovetail on Mr. McGuire's comments, I just wanted to update what we're doing at the 19 parks to help with the mitigation and the mask compliance. Since Thanksgiving, it got much colder. The activity at the tennis courts and the basketball courts has not been as active. The skate park has still been between 13 and 20 people at peak hours, which is between 5 and 8 p.m. So we are going there in 2-hour blocks, playing music and just asking everybody on the microphone to please wear a mask. And we have banners going up that are going to say, one small ask, wear a mask. And we'll put those up at the basketball court and the skate parks around the township. And then with the skate park, we've also done the skate park committee that spent 4 years with me trying to build the new skate park is a really good group of people. And through their social media, they've been helping me out a lot. So just wanted to give you that update, and we are there periodically. And if there's anything that comes to light, please let me know.
Thank you, Mr. Copera. Thank you for everything that you and your team are doing. And I just want to say that I think the way you are handling this currently with regard to the parks and the playgrounds and the skate park really couldn't be better. I mean, it's a good approach, and it seems to be effective so far. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any board members have questions for Mr. Copera? Thank you, Mr. Copera. Appreciate it. And then if Ms. Tealy-Cools could just give us a brief update on where we stand with operations in the building.
So as of last Monday, based upon the rise in cases and the governor's new recommendations, we did close our building. Our employees are still here working. We have by appointment only for anyone who wants to come in and meet with any staff members. We have a drop box out in front of the municipal building for folks who want to drop off plans. And we are also very close to having the ability for builders and land developers to apply for building permits electronically. So at this point, we are closed to the public for walk-in business, but we are open for appointments, and we have our employees staggered so that we don't have as many people in each department at the same time. But other than that, we're all still working. We have some folks that are teleworking a little bit more than they were before. So we're just doing a lot of cleaning and a lot of mask wearing.
Thank you, Ms. Tealy-Cools. Do any board members have any questions for Ms. Tealy-Cools regarding COVID? And seeing none, that will conclude our COVID update, and that will move us to other business. I'll start with Mr. Tosti. I'll start with Ms. Strauss.
I want to thank the staff for preparing the budget and shepherding us through this process. This is one of the most important functions of this board, is to oversee the budget process and ultimately approve a balanced budget. I'm really proud of us for approving a balanced budget that doesn't require a tax increase for another year in a row, especially given the really challenging situation with the pandemic. So thank you and congratulations to everybody involved, and happy holidays to everybody coming up.
Thank you, Ms. Strauss. Okay, Ms. Payne.
I just want to wish everyone a happy holidays and I hope everyone stays safe. And thank the residents who either emailed or Zoomed in for, advocating for what you need for your community. It's important that we hear from members of the community so we know how people feel about different things going on. So I applaud you for caring enough to call in.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. Ms. Corporal.
Yeah, I just wanted to say happy holidays to everybody. I know it's been a really tough year, and I hope that everybody enjoys their family, stay safe, so we can have a great next year. I think there's hope on the horizon, and if we just pull together as a community and wear masks, socially distance, and do what we're supposed to be doing, I think we're going to have a great new year, and I wish everybody the best.
Thank you, Ms. Corporal. Mr. Tosti.
Sorry about that, Mr. Kizak. First, I'd actually like to thank Officer Robinson, our police department, the neighboring police departments for the job that they did yesterday with Shop with the Cop. I was able to be there. I worked outside, but the job that they did inside helping these kids in our community in a time of need was just amazing to see how many people showed up and all the effort that was given by all of the police departments in the surrounding area. Officer Robinson did a fabulous job putting it all together. Our chief of police was there. He did a fabulous job too. Outside though, handing out the food is where I was. And we had the PTO from Maple Point there. We had teachers there from Maple Point School District. We had residents there from Maple Point, from the Middletown area. Just to see everybody come together to help, it was just really amazing. Thank you for having me there and inviting me. I really appreciated that. And I hope I can be part of that each and every year because it's really a time when people do need things, and anything that we can do to help, I was glad to be part of. But then I'd also like to, again, sentiments from everybody else, wish everybody a happy and safe holiday. Please do it wisely. Remember, there is a virus out there, and try to contain the gatherings, but be safe. Just be safe, enjoy the holidays, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Mr. Tosti. Mr. Esposito.
Yes, I just wanted to apologize. I missed announcing a separate executive session that happened earlier. So the board held an executive session on November 24th to discuss personnel matters. So I just wanted to kind of get there. And also just wanted to say happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Esposito. Mr. Kessler.
I just want to wish everyone a happy holidays and happy new year as well. Other than that, nothing further.
Thank you, Mr. Kessler. Ms. Teoli-Cools.
I just would like to thank the entire township team for all their hard work and their efforts through a very difficult year. And I also participated in yesterday's event and would really like to congratulate the entire police department and Missy Robinson for her efforts spearheading it. It was really nice to see so many officers out participating, and the event actually brought us together as a township team as well, supporting Missy in the many tasks involved in getting the event ready. It was nice to see members of all of our departments chipping in, but great job to the staff, and Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah and Happy Holidays to everyone. And that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. And I will just say, just because this is now going to be the last meeting of the year, it has been a difficult year, and I want to thank my fellow supervisors. I want to thank Ms. Teoli-Cools and Mr. Bala, Mr. Esposito, Mr. Kessler, Chief, Mr. McGuire, Mr. Copera, Mr. Ennis, Ms. Bendari, everybody who really had a role to play in getting us through an unusual, challenging, and a difficult year. And I'm pleased to say it ended up actually being a good year, I think, for the township, and we're ending on a positive note. So thank you, everybody, for all your hard work. And I'll also join in the sentiment of saying Happy Holidays and Happy New Year. And with that, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. We are adjourned.